Hafide, Senator Ridgell.
Hafide, please go ahead and introduce yourself for the record before you begin your testimony.
Hafide, I'm Daphne Shimizu. I am the Acting Director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. Okay. Hafide, Senators of the 35th Guam Legislature, thank you for the opportunity for me to come before you to provide some testimony. I'm here representing the Department of Revenue and Taxation. I do have testimony that is written, and we've provided that to the team here so that way you can get copies of it. My team has actually spent some time reviewing. We also did provide information for the fiscal note. I'm assuming that you've all had the opportunity to read that. So let me just go through my written testimony. Buenas and saludos. After review of Bill 3235, the Department of Revenue and Taxation is recommending that the following items in the bill currently be addressed. The first thing is, at a minimum, we at Rev and Tax already face some issues with regards to funding. So if this bill is to pass, it's going to be important that the issue of funding for enforcement, for training, and for our licensing divisions be addressed. The second item, which we found as we were discussing, we also believe that the Department of Public Health and Social Services should be part of the board. There was a listing of the departments that would be involved, and we didn't notice public health, and so we believe that's important. Public health is critical, as they not only have the responsibility of ensuring the health and welfare of our island, but they may already have compiled some vital information from other states that have legalized marijuana programs, and that could be useful for us. The other item that we wanted to address was also in providing, with regards to public health, that they be also involved in providing the initial clearances for licensing of the cultivators, manufacturers, and testing facilities prior to DRT issuing licenses. And that's not something that's unusual. That actually is something that is the case, for example, for medical clinics and things like that. There has to be some clearance from public health before those types of entities are actually licensed by us. The creation of the excise tax, what we are suggesting is that the creation of the excise tax should allow for Rev and Tax or the Cannabis Control Board to procure the seed-to-sale software used in many states and the necessary training involved to ensure the proper reporting from all licensees. That the issue of depositing the proceeds in an FDIC-regulated bank be addressed, as it is still a DEA Schedule I drug. And the last item that we had, which we believe was important to address or at least share with the legislature, was with regards to the Guam Territorial Income Tax Law. There is a limit on the deductibility of a majority of expenses other than cost of goods sold, and with stringent limitations for those engaged in the activity of the sale of marijuana. And so these are the items that we wanted to make sure that we shared with you, Senator Ridgell, and your team as you work to address and discuss this.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'd like to allow my colleagues to ask some questions if they have any, but I have one question. Sure. There has been talk out in the community when I've presented this bill, different venues when I'm speaking about this bill. One of the concerns brought up that I hear routinely is they say, they don't trust the government to be able to regulate it and tax it. So that's basically, they're saying they don't trust your agency has the capability to regulate this new industry and tax this new industry. Do you believe you guys are capable of doing that?
What I can say is that I believe in our team. Do I believe that we have challenges in enforcement? Absolutely. There's a lot of resource issues that we have had. I believe I've shared before in some presentations where even in FY18, because of the fiscal realignment that had to happen, there was significant cuts made to budgets across the board, not just to Rev and Tax. And so, I mean, in terms of enforcement, in terms of licensing, in terms of, I think, not just our agency, but every other agency, we all face some challenges in terms of funding. So that's why the number one item that we put here is funding, because really to do anything, we need to make sure we have the funding. We also need to make sure we have qualified people that can actually, that are competent in this area.
So with the support, you think you guys are capable of taxing and regulating this industry? With the proper support, is that what you're saying?
I think with the proper support, and then, as I was talking with our team, because we do regulate, our ABC regulates, of course, beverages, tobacco, things like that. And we were talking, and the main concern with our compliance team is this is really territory that we've not gone into before. But you know, we believe with proper training, and actually our compliance people, or compliance person, supervisor, he actually had received training. He traveled to Hawaii to receive some training in certain areas of compliance. It's very important that we try to leverage the resources like that we may have versus trying to reinvent the wheel. So if we get the proper training and if we have the proper funding, I believe that we will be able to absolutely enforce. Now, I share with our team, there's no way, even with regards to ticketing, for example, people who are speeding, enforcement, it's almost impossible to do 100% enforcement, right? And that's the challenge, but I believe our team is capable, and I believe that as long as we have trained, good, competent people, we could absolutely work on enforcement, and I believe in my team.
Okay, thank you. Any other senators have any questions or comments? Senator Luis?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Daphne, for coming out and speaking on behalf of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. I just have a question, because I know you just said that we didn't want to reinvent the wheel because there had already processes that have already been happening around the United States. But have you coordinated yourself or any of your staff with, say, for example, the CNMI, which they've already had it legalized for the last couple of months and still haven't really had anything going yet. So I don't know if maybe you've contacted them and found out what some of their loopholes were or some of their issues were, and as far as implementing the program.
No, we haven't, at least in the last couple of months that I've been at Rev and Tax, we have not communicated with other jurisdictions.
Okay, because I think they also may be having some issues getting it started, and they have also adult use program that they had implemented a couple months ago, and they still didn't have anything going. So I didn't know if maybe we can find out from them what some of their, maybe some of their speed bumps are, and which is slowing the program down, that maybe we can learn from if this should pass.
Well, thank you, Senator Muñoz, for bringing that up, because I believe that is absolutely a great idea, especially because there are just our neighbors who are just hundreds of miles away. So, that's something that perhaps our team will look toward doing then. Thank you.
Okay.
Senator Amanda Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Shimizu, for your testimony today. I think that this is what a lot of us have been waiting to hear, especially because this is a proposed industry that's we're looking to create revenue for our government. We want to ensure that it's taxed appropriately so that we are really collecting everything, or we would be collecting everything. And I'm just referring to the testimony prepared by Grassroots Guam, and one of the recommendations to the policy that they suggested was to create a division within the Department of Rev and Tax to specifically address recreational adult use cannabis. And I was wondering if you think that that would be necessary, or would it be something you would suggest be folded into alcohol and tobacco control?
Well, what I do know is that the law allows for the director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation to actually create another division within the department if there is need. At this time, though, I'm thinking at least that's probably something that we're going to have to work to evaluate. Like I mentioned, we do have our compliance team. At this point, the idea is that as we were talking about this particular bill within our agency, we were not contemplating at this time creating another division, but like I mentioned, it is definitely within the law for us to do so. And if there is a need, we will down the line. That is something that can be done.
Thank you.
I'll go with Senator Moylan first. Senator Jim Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. It's very helpful. And I just wanted to ask on your item number 4, can you kindly expand just a little bit more for me reference to the seed to sale software?
I believe that within the bill, there's a reference to seed to sell. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not exactly sure how the seed to sell situation works, but I believe it's quite complicated. But that was actually one of the recommendations of our team. I'm not sure, Senator Ridgell, if you were able to. I'm so sorry because I'm not really very well versed on this.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, the seed to sale is, there's different types of software that are being used for tracking in the jurisdictions that have legalized adult use cannabis in places like the states of Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, for example. So there's different types of software out there, but that's what they're using to track.
Right, but our point was that because that's part of the bill, that there would be some funding for it, perhaps through the 15% excise tax or some other means.
Understood, thanks. Senator Tello Tadigui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And buenas. Thank you for being here to testify, especially in this area, because we know that this bill, not only on a recreational side of it, but on a profitable economic growth to our island. You mentioned earlier, and I was going to bring it up, that you provided some input to BBMAR as they prepared the fiscal note for this. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at the numbers in the back to try and figure out where did these numbers come from?
So our team actually was trying to look for some data. And so I actually have, it's the National Drug Intelligence Center. It's a report that was put together by the U.S. Department of Justice. It's a little bit old. It's actually from 2003, but we wanted to use something that was actually, we believe was credible. In the most recent report that we found from the U.S. Department of Justice, it wasn't as detailed as this in terms of the actual, this whole section is for Guam versus what we saw, which was like 165 pages for 2018, which didn't have a lot of detail.